I also believe greenwash is beginning to subside, leading to the emergence of what I believe in, which is sensible, sustainable solutions. Secondly, sustainable buildings are beginning to have value. In the recession, buyers have more power, so they become more demanding. As a result, we're seeing developers beginning to use sustainability as a marketing tool. EPCs are just beginning to have an effect. Energy efficiency, obviously when costs are at a premium, is also much more important. Then lastly, if those two weren't enough, there's legislation. If you'll forgive me, I'll just read a few. Energy Performance of Buildings Directive, the Climate Change Act, Carbon Reduction Commitment, Code for Sustainable Homes, Part L, SBEM, EPCs, the Merton Rule, BREEAM, the Potential Code for Sustainable Buildings, the Energy Act, the Renewable Transport Fuel Obligations. That's just to name but a few. In summary, sustainability is here to stay. It's not going to go away. If it's not already part of the construction process, it will be, either by demand from clients or by legislation. Firms that embrace sustainability will emerge stronger from the recession. Those that don't, I actually fear, may not emerge at all.
Excellent. Very good. Thank you, Ashley. Peter, would you like to?
Yes, I'm Peter Stoddart. I'm an architect and town planner. My current job is Director of Joint Planning for Cambridge's growth areas and Northstowe Newtown. So I work for 3 local authorities for my sins and lead multidisciplinary teams that are negotiating the large housing developments around Cambridge, including Northstowe. And in a previous guise, I was Director of Planning with Cambridge City Council, where one or two of you might have come across me. I think what I want to say is that I think that the planning system is in a strange state at the moment because it's been refined over the last 10 years around this bubble within the market to the point where planners and politicians have expected to be able to deliver ever-increasing levels of quality and ambition through mere regulating the bubble of the market. So that Section 106 agreements between planning authorities and developers have been the main focus of that interaction. And it's been no great surprise that the planning system has become more and more complicated and more cumbersome, both in the plan making and the site allocation stage, but also in the negotiation on planning applications. But the fundamental driver of this particular approach was an assumption was that the market somehow would deliver, and that ultimately one could sort of deliver utopia in a Section 106 agreement. And that's obviously been proved to be wrong. And in fact, even when the market was working well, generally it was producing rubbish, actually, in a lot of cases, by the sort of measures that one uses on building for life and particularly in housing schemes. And housing, I suppose, is my main interest at the moment. And I think that there is an ongoing need for housing. I think that there may not be need and demand for commercial property in the short term, but housing, the drivers for housing need are not just economic drivers, they're also demographic drivers in terms of people living longer and households getting smaller. And particularly in areas like Cambridge and prosperous areas. One of my favourite quotes is that if you're an average man in South Cambridgeshire, you'll live 8 years longer than an average man in central Glasgow. We're a very healthy area around here. People stay in their houses longer, there's lower turnover, so we need more houses. So the need is very much there, and also the need to provide all the supporting facilities that new housing developments require will also become no less important. And also that the trends, quite rightly, in spatial planning have been to tend to concentrate housing in a smaller number of larger places rather than sprinkle it around in a low-density way around the sub-region in growth areas where the planning strategy is very much about concentration at higher densities in a smaller number of large places like Northstowe Newtown, and around Cambridge we're talking about 4,000 houses around the southern fringe, possibly 6,000 houses in northwest Cambridge, possibly 12,000 houses on the east side of Cambridge if we can relocate marshals. and then another 10,000 houses at Northstowe. And that's a very large part of our housing need being met in those relatively small places. And those spaces, although it's a very sound strategy in sustainability terms, there are huge costs in terms of the infrastructure that needs to be put in those places in order to support them. So I think that gives us huge challenges. And I think the big issue, it is interesting about the quality agenda, whether there will be pressure to erode quality further in the short term. I sincerely hope not. But I think we haven't reached the point yet politically where that choice has had to be faced. And I think also that the other issue is going to be whether we're going to have to revert back to putting development in a larger number of small places, because it's going to be a lot easier to deliver in the short term than a small number of large places, and what the implications will that have for the construction industry. So I think we're in a strange time at the moment, and no one, I think, as in a lot of areas, no one's quite sure where it's leading.
Well, thank you. That's 4 extremely interesting views, and I'm sure we'll enrich the debate. So I'd like to go into questions now, and there may come some surprise to the panel, but we'll see how they cope with it. First question is from a solicitor in Cambridge, Tim Richards. Tim, your question.
Thank you, David.
Can we just get a microphone on? Thank you.
Starting it. Thank you, David. Does the panel consider that this country has the ability to retain enough skilled workers to enable us to benefit from any post-recession upsurge in construction activity, particularly in the light of the fiasco over the capital funding programme for FE colleges?
Well, a nice little comment on the FE colleges. I'm sure will be an amen to that in these precincts. The question is, does the panel consider this country has the ability to produce and retain enough skilled workers to enable us to benefit from any post-recession upsurge in construction activity, and then with reference to FE? Sandra, would you like to start us off, please?
Yes, I will. Thank you for that question. Thank you, David. What I would say is using something like the Construction Skills Network, which is a skills forecasting tool, and understanding your market and what's happening within the market is essential to knowing what demand looks like in terms of forecasting, and what supply looks like in terms of people that are actually going through training as well. I think we have the capabilities to actually continue to produce the skilled workers that we need, but the danger at the moment is how many workers are we actually going to lose? How many skilled workers are we going to lose as this recession moves forward and we start to see a recovery coming through in 2011? How many of those people who have left our industry, who are trained, will actually come back into our industry? Now, probably a positive side to this, and it's probably a little bit contradictory, is that other sectors are suffering just as much as construction, be it finance sectors, manufacturing sectors. So we may not see the people leaving our industry and retraining in other sectors and not coming back, but I certainly think there is an issue there with regard to monitoring our level of skills workers and looking at ways in which we can retain them, and I think retaining our apprentices is the starting point to that.
Ted, apprentices?
Yes, I sincerely hope so, but I suspect not. From most of the figures, I think Sandra alluded to it in her opening remarks about the amount of apprentices that we've already lost over the past 6 months. Add to that, less than 10% of construction firms take on apprentices, which again is worrying. And of that, the Federation of Master Builders say that 65% of those are from small or medium-sized companies. So it's something that definitely needs to be addressed without a doubt. But I think there's also one thing that we always do ourselves down on a little bit, is that we don't actually realise the skills that we've actually got. And I think that we do ourselves down in as much as we have very good skills in the construction industry in the UK. We don't tend to champion them as much. We export them very well. And I think if we can transfer those skills down through to the younger generation,